Heavenly Father, I pray for everyone watching this video right now. May you bless them with peace, joy, and breakthroughs in their lives. Amen. Hello, my wonderful family. I am so glad and grateful to have you here with me today. Your support means the world, and I truly don't take it for granted. Before we dive into today's powerful story, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment below to share your thoughts, and of course, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update from this channel. The world stopped the moment Ryan Matthews saw those eyes. Not Emma's eyes, though seeing her after 7 years had already knocked the breath from his lungs. No, it was the little girl's eyes that made his champagne glass slip from his fingers, the crystal shattering against the wedding venue's polished floor. Those eyes were his own, staring back at him from a face that was unmistakably his daughter. His daughter. The thought hit him like a freight train as conversations swirled around him, wedding guests laughing and celebrating while his entire universe tilted off its axis. 6 years old, maybe 7. The timeline made his chest tighten with a recognition so profound it felt like drowning. Ryan. His best friend Jake appeared at his elbow, concern creasing his features. You look like you've seen a ghost. Worse than a ghost. Ryan's gaze remained locked on the little girl across the room, watching as she tugged on Emma's elegant navy dress, pointing excitedly at the wedding cake. Emma's hair was shorter now, a sophisticated bob that framed her face, but when she laughed at something the child said, it was the same laugh that used to make him believe in forever. Who is that? Ryan's voice came out rougher than intended. The woman with the little girl? Jake followed his stare, and Ryan caught the slight pause before his friend answered. That's Emma Chin. She's Rebecca's college roommate, flew in from Portland for the wedding. Another pause. And that's her daughter, Lily. Lily. Even her name felt like a punch to his solar plexus. Emma had always loved lilies, had them in her apartment, talked about planting a garden full of them someday. There's someday that never came. Her daughter, Ryan repeated, the words tasting foreign on his tongue. She's not married? Divorced, I think. Or maybe she never. Jake's expression shifted to something closer to realization. Ryan, you're not thinking what I think you're thinking. But Ryan was already moving, his legs carrying him across the reception hall before his brain could catch up. 7 years of building an empire, of convincing himself he'd moved on, of carefully constructed walls around his heart. All of it crumbling with each step toward the truth he could see written in a 6-year-old's smile. Emma looked up just as he reached them, and the color drained from her face so fast he thought she might faint. Hello, Emma. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Ryan. I didn't know you'd be here. Jake's my best friend. His eyes dropped to the little girl, who was studying him with unself-conscious curiosity. Up close, the resemblance was even more devastating. The same dark hair with an impossible cowlick on the left side. The same stubborn chin. The same way of tilting her head when she was thinking. Mommy, who's this? Lily asked, and Ryan's knees nearly buckled at the sound of her voice. This is... Emma's voice cracked. This is an old friend, sweetheart. Friend. The word should have stung, but Ryan was too busy memorizing every detail of his daughter's face. Because there was no question now, no room for doubt. This child was his. I'm Ryan, he said, crouching down to Lily's eye level. What's your name? Lily Chun, she announced proudly. I'm 6 3/4. 6 3/4. Ryan did the math automatically, his business mind calculating conception dates, while his heart screamed with the unfairness of it all. She would have been born in spring, maybe March or April. 9 months before that put conception in. July. The month everything fell apart between them. The month Emma had tried to tell him something important, and he'd been too angry, too hurt, too proud to listen. That's a beautiful name, he managed, his voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside his chest. Thank you. Mommy says I'm named after a flower, because I'm supposed to grow strong and beautiful. Emma's sharp intake of breath was barely audible, but Ryan heard it. He stood slowly, his eyes finding hers over Lily's head, and saw everything he needed to know in the tears she was fighting back. We should talk, he said quietly. I don't think that's... We should talk, he repeated, and this time it wasn't a request. Emma glanced around the reception, clearly looking for an escape route. But before she could respond, Lily piped up again. Are you sad? You look sad. Ryan's chest constricted. Even at 6, she was perceptive, caring. Sometimes grown-ups have big feelings, he said carefully. Mommy gets big feelings sometimes too. She cries when she looks at pictures of before I was born. The words hit him like a physical blow. Emma's face went white, then red, then white again. Lily, why don't you go find Aunt Rebecca? Emma's voice was strained. She wanted to show you the fountain outside. But I want to talk to the sad man. Maybe we can help him feel better. The sad man, if only she knew how right she was. If only she knew that meeting her had simultaneously broken and healed something inside him he'd thought was permanently damaged. Go on, sweetheart, Emma urged. I'll be right here. Lily hesitated, then stood on her tiptoes and patted Ryan's arm with small, gentle fingers. Don't worry. Big feelings always get smaller if you talk about them. And then she was gone, skipping toward the garden with the unconscious grace of childhood, leaving Ryan and Emma standing in the wreckage of 7 years of silence. She's mine, Ryan said. It wasn't a question. Emma's shoulders sagged in defeat. Ryan, She's mine, he repeated, and this time his voice carried the weight of a man who'd just discovered he'd been living half a life for 6 3/4 years. Emma's hands trembled as she gripped her clutched purse, the same way they used to shake when she was nervous in college. Ryan remembered everything about those hands, how they'd traced his jaw when she whispered she loved him, how they'd thrown his engagement ring back at him the night everything crumbled. We can't do this here, Emma whispered, glancing toward the garden where Lily was now helping Rebecca's niece pick flowers. There are too many people. Then where? Ryan's voice carried an edge that made nearby guests turn their heads. He forced himself to lower it, to remember he was at his best friend's wedding, not in a boardroom where he could demand answers. Emma, you've hidden my daughter from me for 6 years. I think I deserve an explanation. The word daughter seemed to hit her like a slap. She flinched, then straightened her shoulders with the same stubborn determination he remembered from their fights about his work schedule, his priorities, his inability to see past his own ambition. I tried to tell you, she said quietly. 7 years ago, I tried to tell you everything. The memory slammed into him with perfect, brutal clarity. Emma standing in his apartment doorway, tears streaming down her face, saying she had something important to discuss. He'd been packing for a business trip to Tokyo, the deal that would eventually make him his first million, and he'd brushed her off. Told her it would have to wait. Told her he didn't have time for whatever drama she wanted to create. I'm pregnant, she'd started to say, but he'd cut her off with something cruel about timing, about how she always needed his attention when he was trying to work. He'd accused her of being needy, manipulative, of trying to sabotage his success. She'd left that night. By the time he got back from Tokyo 2 weeks later, she was gone from their shared apartment, from Stanford, from his life entirely. Her roommate had said Emma transferred schools, but wouldn't say where. He'd been too proud to chase her, too convinced she'd come crawling back once she realized what she was giving up. Christ, he breathed, running a hand through his hair. You were trying to tell me you were pregnant. I was scared, Emma admitted, her voice barely audible over the string quartet. We talked about marriage, about the future, but you were so focused on building your company. And when you said, she stopped, shook her head. It doesn't matter what you said. I should have tried harder. But Ryan remembered exactly what he'd said. Asterisk, Emma, I can't deal with your insecurities right now. I'm building something here, something bigger than your need for constant reassurance. Asterisk, the words tasted like poison in his memory. You moved to Portland, he said. It wasn't a question. His private investigator had found that much 3 years ago when he'd finally swallowed his pride and tried to find her. But the trail had gone cold. Emma Chun was apparently common enough that tracking her down had proved impossible. My aunt lives there. She helped me through. Emma gestured vaguely, and Ryan realized she meant the pregnancy. His pregnancy. The birth of his daughter. Lily's first steps, first words, first day of school. All of it happening 3 states away while he'd been building an empire he'd thought would make him happy. Jake knew, Ryan said suddenly, pieces clicking into place. Jake's slight pause earlier, the way he'd looked when Ryan asked about Emma. That's why you're here. He told you I'd be at the wedding. Emma's silence was answer enough, and the betrayal hit him like a physical blow. His best friend had known he had a daughter and never said a word. He didn't know about Lily, Emma said quickly, reading his expression. Not until this week. Rebecca mentioned that her college roommate was coming to the wedding, and Jake put it together. He called me, said I should tell you before you saw us here, but she stopped, wrapping her arms around herself. I couldn't find the words. 7 years, Emma. Ryan's voice broke on her name. You've let me believe I was alone in this world for 7 years. when I had a daughter who... He couldn't finish the sentence. Who looked at sad grown-ups and wanted to help them feel better. Who was named after flowers because she was meant to grow strong and beautiful. Who had his stubborn chin and his mother's eyes. Eyes he'd recognize anywhere because they were looking back at him from his own reflection every morning. You want to talk about being alone? Emma's composure finally cracked, years of suppressed anger surfacing. You threw me away like I was nothing the moment I became inconvenient. You made it clear that your business was more important than anything I could offer you. So forgive me if I didn't think you'd want to be burdened with a child. The accusation stung because it carried the weight of truth. At 25, Ryan had been consumed with proving himself, with building something lasting after growing up watching his father lose job after job, watching his mother work 3 jobs to keep them afloat. Success had been his only goal, his only measure of worth. But that didn't excuse what he was feeling now. The grief of missing 6 years of his daughter's life, the rage at having that choice taken from him. I would have stepped up, he said. Maybe I was a selfish bastard then, but I would have done right by her. By both of you. Would you? Emma's laugh was bitter. The Ryan I knew couldn't spare 2 minutes for a conversation about our relationship. You want me to believe you would have changed your entire life for a baby. Before Ryan could respond, a small voice interrupted them. Mommy, why are you crying? They both turned to find Lily standing a few feet away, flower petals caught in her dark hair, her face scrunched with concern. Behind her, Jake approached with Rebecca on his arm, both of them looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. I'm not crying, sweetheart, Emma said, quickly wiping her eyes. Just talking to my friend about grown-up things. But you're making the same face you made when you looked at the pictures in the shoebox. Ryan's heart clenched. What pictures? The ones of Mommy when she was young, with the man who looks like me, Lily said innocently. Mommy said he was someone very special who had to go away. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the string quartet seemed to pause. Emma's face went white as Lily's words hung in the air, innocent and devastating. You kept pictures of me? Ryan's voice was barely a whisper. Emma opened her mouth, but no words came. And in that moment of hesitation, Ryan saw something that shattered him more completely than any anger could have. Hope. After 7 years, after everything that had gone wrong between them, she'd kept pictures of him. Had told their daughter he was someone special. But before Emma could respond, Jake finally reached them, his expression grim. Ryan, there's something else you need to know, Jake said quietly. Emma, I'm sorry, but he has to know before. Jake, don't, Emma said sharply. Before what? Ryan demanded, looking between them. Jake glanced at Lily, then back at Ryan. Emma's getting married. Next month. The words hit Ryan like a sledgehammer. As if discovering he had a daughter wasn't devastating enough. Now he was learning he was about to lose them both again. But this time, there would be no coming back from it. This time, another man would raise his daughter, teach her to ride a bike, walk her down the aisle someday. Congratulations, Ryan managed, though the word felt like swallowing glass. Ryan, Emma started. No. He held up a hand, needing space to breathe, to think, to figure out how his entire world had been upended in the span of 20 minutes. I need some air. He turned and walked away, leaving Emma calling his name behind him, leaving Lily asking her mother why the sad man looked even sadder now. He pushed through the garden doors and into the evening air, his chest tight with a pain he hadn't felt since the day Emma left him the first time. But as he stood there trying to process the magnitude of what he'd lost, and what he'd just learned he was about to lose forever, one thought kept echoing through his mind. Emma had kept pictures of him, had told their daughter he was someone special. That had to mean something. It had to. Ryan had been standing in the garden for exactly 4 minutes when his phone buzzed. The caller ID made his blood run cold. Portland General Hospital. But before he could answer, he heard Emma's voice behind him, tight with panic. Lily, where did you put your inhaler? Ryan spun around to see Emma frantically digging through her purse while Lily sat on a garden bench, her breathing shallow and rapid. Even in the dim evening light, he could see the child's lips taking on a bluish tinge. I don't know, Lily wheezed. I had it in my backpack, but Daddy David said I didn't need to bring it because we're only staying 2 days. Daddy David. The words hit Ryan like a physical blow, but he pushed the pain aside as his daughter struggled for breath. He'd had asthma as a child, recognized the signs immediately. How severe is it usually? Ryan asked, already moving toward them, his phone forgotten. Moderate to severe, Emma said without looking up from her frantic search. She's been doing so well lately, David thought. She cut herself off, pulling out her own phone. I need to call 911. Wait. Ryan was already mentally calculating distances, response times, traffic patterns. His business mind automatically shifted into crisis management mode. My driver is here. Hospital is 8 minutes through downtown if we skip the freeway. I don't need your help, Emma snapped, but her hands were shaking as she dialed. Mommy, Lily gasped. It's getting harder. That decided it. Ryan scooped Lily into his arms before Emma could protest, feeling the rapid flutter of his daughter's heartbeat against his chest. My car. Now. Ryan, I can't. Your daughter is having an asthma attack and you're worried about pride? His voice cut through her protests. We can fight about everything else later. Right now, she needs a hospital. Emma's phone was ringing in her hand when she made the decision. Jake, she called toward the reception. Tell Rebecca we had to leave. Emergency. Ryan was already moving, Lily light as a feather in his arms, her small hand clutching his shirt as she fought for each breath. His Mercedes was parked in the front circle, his driver Marcus already opening the door as they approached. Portland General, fast as you can without killing us, Ryan instructed as Emma slid into the back seat beside him. I should call David, Emma said, but her hands were focused on Lily now, smoothing her hair, whispering reassurances. Who's David? Ryan asked, though he already knew it would destroy him to hear the answer. My fiancé, Emma said quietly. He's a pediatric pulmonologist at Portland General. He's been treating Lily's asthma for 2 years. Of course he is. Ryan closed his eyes briefly against the irony. Emma's fiancé wasn't just some random man. He was a doctor who specialized in treating children exactly like Lily. A man who'd been there for his daughter's medical crises, while Ryan had been completely oblivious to her existence. He's in surgery until 11, Emma continued, glancing at her watch. But I should. Lily's breathing became more labored, and Ryan felt something primal and protective surge through him. This was his child, his flesh and blood, and she was struggling for something as basic as air. How did you two meet? He asked, needing the distraction, needing to understand how Emma had moved on, built a life without him. The ER, Emma said, her attention still focused on Lily. Lily had a severe attack when she was 4. David was on call. He saved her life. He saved her life. The words twisted in Ryan's chest. While he'd been closing deals and building his empire, another man had been saving his daughter's life, earning Emma's trust, becoming the father Lily had never known she was missing. Does she know? Ryan asked quietly. About me being her biological father? Emma was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, she knows her biological father wasn't ready to be a parent. She knows David chose to love her anyway. The accusation in those words was clear, and Ryan deserved every bit of it. But sitting here with Lily in his arms, feeling her small body fight for each breath, he also felt something he'd never experienced before. An absolute, unshakable certainty that he would do anything, sacrifice anything, to protect this child. We're here, Marcus announced, pulling up to the emergency entrance. The next hour passed in a blur of medical forms, nebulizer treatments, and watching strangers take care of his daughter while he stood helplessly in the corner. Emma handled everything with the practiced efficiency of a mother who'd been through this before, and Ryan realized how much of Lily's life he'd missed. Not just the milestones, but the crises, the middle-of-the-night fevers, the doctor's appointments, the daily reality of raising a child. By the time Lily was breathing normally again, propped up in a hospital bed with a teddy bear one of the nurses had given her, Ryan's phone had buzzed 6 more times. All from the same Portland number. That's probably David, Emma said, noticing. I texted him that we were here. As if summoned, a tall man in scrubs appeared in the doorway. Dr. David Chun. Ryan noticed Emma had taken his name. Was everything Ryan had expected and worse. Handsome in an understated way, with kind eyes and gentle hands that immediately went to check Lily's pulse as he kissed Emma's forehead. How's my brave girl? David asked Lily, and the easy affection in his voice made Ryan want to punch something. The sad man brought me to the hospital in his fast car, Lily announced. His name is Ryan, and he has eyes like mine. David's gaze found Ryan for the first time, and Ryan saw recognition dawn on the other man's face. Emma had told him. Of course she had. Well, I'm glad Ryan was there to help, David said carefully, his voice neutral, but his posture protective as he positioned himself between Ryan and his family. His family. David, this is Ryan Matthews, Emma said quietly. Ryan, this is Dr. David Chen. My fiancé. The two men shook hands, and Ryan was struck by how normal David seemed. He'd been prepared to hate Emma's fiancé, had expected someone he could dismiss as unworthy. Instead, he was faced with a man who clearly loved both Emma and Lily, who'd been there for them in ways Ryan never had. "Thank you for getting them here so quickly," David said, and his gratitude seemed genuine. "Emma told me about your connection to Lily." "My daughter," Ryan corrected quietly, and he saw David's jaw tighten slightly. "The daughter you abandoned," David said, his voice still calm but with an edge now. "David," Emma warned. "The daughter I didn't know existed," Ryan shot back. "Because her mother decided I didn't deserve to know. Because you made it clear." "Enough." Emma's voice cut through their growing tension. "Lily doesn't need to hear this." But Lily was watching the three adults with bright, curious eyes. "Are you fighting about me?" she asked. The question hung in the air, innocent and devastating. Here was a 6-year-old girl who'd just had an asthma attack, surrounded by three adults whose complicated relationships she couldn't possibly understand. "Sometimes grown-ups disagree about important things," David said gently, sitting on the edge of her bed. "But it's not your fault, sweetheart." "The sad man isn't sad anymore," Lily observed, looking at Ryan. "He looks angry now." Ryan felt something crack inside his chest. His daughter, this bright, perceptive, amazing little girl, had been analyzing his emotions all evening, worrying about him, trying to help him feel better, and he hadn't even been able to tell her who he was. "I'm not angry at you," Ryan said, crouching beside her bed. "I could never be angry at you." "But you're angry at Mommy?" The simple question cut right to the heart of everything. Was he angry at Emma? For keeping Lily from him, for moving on, for building a life that didn't include him? Or was he angry at himself for being the kind of man who could drive away the best thing that had ever happened to him? "It's complicated," he said finally. "That's what Mommy always says when she's sad about the pictures in the shoebox." David's expression shifted, and Ryan saw a flicker of something. Hurt? Jealousy? Cross his features. Even Emma's fiancé hadn't known about the pictures. Before anyone could respond, Ryan's phone buzzed again. This time he looked at it, and his blood ran cold. "I have to take this," he said, stepping into the hallway. "Ryan Matthews." "Mr. Matthews, this is Dr. Sarah Kim at Portland General. We have your emergency contact information on file for Emma Chen. There's been an accident." The world tilted. "What kind of accident?" "A car accident about an hour ago. Ms. Chen was listed as next of kin for the other party involved. We need someone to come in immediately to make some decisions about care." "I don't understand." "Emma's here with me." "Not Emma Chen, sir. The contact is for David Chen. Dr. David Chen." Ryan's blood turned to ice. David Chen was in a car accident? But even as he said the words, he was looking through the hospital room window at David, very much alive, checking Lily's oxygen levels. "No, sir, I'm sorry for the confusion. Dr. Chen was listed as emergency contact for a Ms. Sarah Chen. She's been asking for her brother." "Brother?" David had a sister, and she'd been in an accident. Ryan felt sick as he realized what this meant. "Is she? How serious is it?" "Very serious, Mr. Matthews. We need Dr. Chen here immediately." Ryan closed his eyes, knowing that what he was about to do would change everything. But as he looked at Lily, his daughter, laughing at something David was saying, he realized he didn't have a choice. "Dr. Chen can't leave right now. There's a family emergency here. But I can be there in 20 minutes. "Sir, you're not listed as." "I'm Ryan Matthews. I own half of downtown Portland." It wasn't true, but his reputation would precede him. "I'll handle whatever needs to be handled until Dr. Chen can get there." He hung up before the doctor could protest, then walked back into the room where his daughter was coloring a picture of flowers with crayons a nurse had brought her. "David," he said quietly, "we need to talk." The color drained from David's face as Ryan quietly explained about his sister's accident. Emma, still focused on Lily, didn't notice the whispered conversation by the door, but Ryan could see the exact moment David's world shifted. "How bad?" David's voice was barely audible. "Bad enough that they need you there now," Ryan said. "But they can't tell you more over the phone." David looked torn between the woman and child he'd chosen to love and the sister who'd raised him after their parents died in a ferry accident when he was 15. Ryan recognized the expression. He'd worn it himself countless times when forced to choose between Emma and his business all those years ago. "I can't leave Lily," David said. "Not when she just had an attack." "She's stable now," Ryan pointed out, hating himself for the manipulation but knowing it was necessary. And Emma's here. Emma doesn't know about the night protocol. If Lily has another episode, then teach me. The words came out before Ryan could stop them. I had asthma as a kid. I know the basics. David stared at him with something that looked like disbelief. You want to stay with them? I want to stay with my daughter. But Ryan couldn't say that, not when David had been the one to save Lily's life, the one to earn the right to call himself her father. Emma's scared, Ryan said instead, which was true. And Lily seems comfortable with me. You go take care of your sister. We'll manage here. For a moment, David looked like he might refuse. Then Lily's voice carried over from the bed. Daddy David, you look sad now too. Are you having big feelings like Ryan was? The sound of his daughter calling another man daddy felt like a knife to Ryan's chest, but he forced himself to remain calm. David walked back to the bed, sat down carefully beside Lily. I have to go help someone who's hurt, sweetheart, David said gently. But Mommy will be here, and Ryan will stay too. Will you come back? Lily asked, and Ryan heard the underlying fear that spoke of a child who'd learned that people could disappear from her life. I promise, David said, kissing her forehead. And if you need anything at all, Mommy will call me, okay? Lily nodded solemnly, then looked at Ryan. Will you stay until Daddy David comes back? As long as you want me to, Ryan said, and meant it more than anything he'd ever said in his life. The next 20 minutes were a careful dance of medical instructions and unspoken tensions. David showed Ryan how to use the nebulizer, explained Lily's medication schedule, and demonstrated the proper way to check her oxygen levels with the portable monitor. Emma watched this exchange with something that looked like amazement, as if she couldn't quite believe Ryan was capable of caring about someone other than himself. If her oxygen drops below 92, you call me immediately, David instructed. If she shows any signs of respiratory distress, I'll call, Ryan assured him. Go. Your sister needs you. After David left, the hospital room felt smaller, charged with 7 years of unresolved history. Lily had fallen asleep clutching her teddy bear, her breathing steady and peaceful, but Emma remained perched on the edge of her chair like she might bolt at any moment. You didn't have to do that, Emma said quietly. Stay with my daughter while she's in the hospital? Yes, I did. She's not. Emma started, then stopped herself. Not what? Not mine. We both know that's not true. Emma was quiet for a long moment, watching Lily sleep. She's David's too, you know. In every way that matters. The words stung, but Ryan found he couldn't argue with them. David had been there for Lily's nightmares, her scraped knees, her triumphs and failures. He'd earned his place in her life through presence, through showing up day after day. Tell me about her, Ryan said instead. Tell me what I missed. Emma glanced at him suspiciously, as if looking for the catch. Why? Because she's my daughter, and I want to know her. Even though I'm marrying David in 3 weeks? The timeline hit him like a physical blow. 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, Emma would become Mrs. David Chin permanently, and Lily would officially become David's daughter in the eyes of the law. Any chance Ryan might have had of being part of his daughter's life would disappear forever. Tell me anyway, he said. So Emma did. Hesitantly at first, then with growing warmth, she told him about Lily's first word, Mama, her first steps, at 10 months, early like Ryan had been, her obsession with dinosaurs that lasted from ages 3 to 5. She told him about the night terrors that started after David proposed, how Lily had asked if getting a new daddy meant losing her old one, not knowing there had never been an old one to lose. She asked about her biological father when she turned 5, Emma admitted. I told her that sometimes people aren't ready to be parents, but that doesn't mean they don't love you. Did you believe that? Ryan asked quietly. That I loved her, even though I didn't know she existed? Emma was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, I wanted to. When I was pregnant, when I was scared and alone, I told myself that if you'd known, you would have cared. But then the years passed, and you never tried to find me, and I started to think maybe I was wrong about who you really were. I did try to find you, Ryan said. 3 years ago. But Emma Chun in Portland turned out to be harder to track down than I expected. She looked startled. You looked for me? I hired a private investigator. Spent 6 months and $30,000 trying to find you. He laughed bitterly. Turns out I should have just asked Jake. Why? The question was barely a whisper. Why did you look for me? Ryan could have lied, could have given her some easy answer about closure or curiosity. Instead, he told her the truth. Because I woke up one morning and realized I'd built everything I thought I wanted, and none of it mattered because you weren't there to share it with me. Emma's breath caught, and for a moment the years fell away. She looked at him the way she used to, with hope and possibility, and something that might have been love. Ryan, I know it's too late, he said quickly. I know you've moved on, that you're happy with David. I needed you to know that losing you was the biggest mistake of my life. You didn't lose me, Emma said softly. You threw me away. The accusation hung between them, true and brutal. But before Ryan could respond, Lily stirred in her bed, her eyes fluttering open. Mommy, she said drowsily. Where's Daddy David? He had to help someone who was hurt, remember? Emma said, smoothing Lily's hair. But Ryan's here. Lily's gaze found Ryan, and she smiled. The same smile he saw in his mirror every morning. Are you still sad? A little, Ryan admitted. But talking to your mom is helping. Talking always helps, Lily said seriously. That's what Daddy David says. He says when people don't talk, their feelings get all tangled up like Christmas lights. Out of the mouths of babes, Ryan felt something twist in his chest. His daughter was dispensing relationship advice that he and Emma could have used 7 years ago. Lily, Emma said carefully, how would you feel if Ryan came to visit us sometimes? In Portland. Ryan's heart stopped. He hadn't dared to hope Emma would even consider letting him be part of Lily's life. Would he come to my birthday party? Lily asked. It's next month. Daddy David is going to teach me to ride a bike without training wheels. Next month. When Emma would be Mrs. David Chun, when Lily would legally become David's daughter, when Ryan would officially become a stranger with no rights to the child he'd helped create. We'd have to talk about that, Emma said diplomatically. I'd like that, Lily said simply. I like Ryan. He has sad eyes like the people in Mommy's pictures, but he's not scary. Ryan felt Emma stiffen beside him. What do you mean, sweetheart? The pictures in your bedroom. The ones you look at when you think I'm sleeping. The man looks sad, but he's not scary like the men Aunt Rebecca dates. Emma's face went pale. Lily, those are private. But he looks just like Ryan, Lily continued innocently. Except younger. Are you the man in Mommy's pictures? The question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Ryan looked at Emma, saw the panic in her eyes, and realized that whatever pictures Lily was talking about, Emma definitely didn't want him to know about them. Lily, Emma said quickly, why don't you try to get some more sleep? You need to rest. But Lily was awake now, her mind working in the way children's minds do when they sense adult secrets. Mommy, why do you look at pictures of Ryan? And why do you cry when you look at them? The silence that followed was deafening. Emma looked trapped, desperate, like she wanted to disappear into the hospital floor. Ryan felt his heart hammering against his ribs. Emma, he said quietly. What pictures? Before Emma could answer, his phone rang. The caller ID showed David's number, and Ryan answered on the first ring, grateful for the interruption. David, how's your sister? She's gone, Ryan. David's voice was hollow, broken. I got here too late. She died an hour ago. Ryan closed his eyes, feeling the weight of David's grief through the phone. I'm so sorry. There are arrangements to make paperwork. I can't leave right now. Can you stay with them? Just for tonight. Ryan looked at Emma, who was watching him with wide eyes, then at Lily, who was studying them both with the intense curiosity of a child who knew something important was happening. Of course, Ryan said. Take all the time you need. Tell Emma I love her, David said, his voice cracking. Tell her I'll call when I can. I will. After Ryan hung up, he had to deliver the news that David's sister hadn't survived, that the man who'd become Lily's father was now dealing with his own devastating loss. Emma burst into tears, for David, for his sister, for the complexity of the situation they all found themselves in. And through it all, Lily watched them with eyes that were far too knowing for a 6-year-old, clutching her teddy bear, and asking the kinds of questions that would eventually force all of them to confront the truth about who they really were to each other. Mommy, Lily said as Emma wiped her tears, are you crying because someone died, or because of the pictures? Emma looked at Ryan helplessly, and he realized they were about to cross a line they couldn't uncross. The truth was going to come out, about the pictures, about his identity, about everything they'd been hiding from a little girl who was smart enough to see through their careful deceptions. It's complicated, sweetheart, Emma said finally. That's what you always say, Lily replied. But maybe it doesn't have to be. At 11 p.m., the hospital had grown quiet except for the soft beeping of Lily's monitors and the distant sounds of the night shift. Lily had been asleep for an hour, her small hand still clutching the teddy bear, her breathing steady and peaceful. Emma sat in the chair beside her bed, but Ryan could see the exhaustion in every line of her body. "You should try to sleep," he said quietly from his position by the window. "I'll watch her." "I can't." Emma's voice was raw from crying, for David's loss, for the impossibility of their situation, for everything they'd broken 7 years ago that was now scattered in pieces around them. "Every time I close my eyes, I see her turning blue in that garden. She's okay now. This time." Emma looked at him, and in the dim hospital lighting, she looked exactly like she had at 23. Young, scared, beautiful. "But what about next time? What if David's not there? What if I mess up her medication schedule? What if—" "Emma." Ryan moved from the window to crouch beside her chair. "You're an amazing mother. Anyone can see that." "Am I?" The question came out broken. "Because I look at her, and all I can think about is how she should have had a father who loved her from the beginning. How she should have had 2 parents working together to keep her safe." The words hit Ryan like a physical blow. "I would have been there," he said. "If you'd told me." "Would you?" Emma turned to face him fully, and there was something desperate in her expression. "Or would you have seen her as an obligation? A problem to be managed between business trips? You don't know." "I know exactly who you were, Ryan." Emma's voice was quiet but fierce. "I know because I spent 3 years planning our life together while you were planning your next deal." The word stopped him cold. "What do you mean planning our life?" Emma was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos until she found what she was looking for. She handed it to him without a word. The image on the screen made his world tilt. It was a wedding dress, vintage lace, simple and elegant, hanging in what looked like a bridal shop fitting room. The timestamp showed it was taken 7 years ago, just weeks before Emma had disappeared from his life. "I bought a dress," she whispered. "I had a venue picked out, a photographer booked, a menu planned. I was waiting for you to propose, thinking any day you'd realize we belonged together." Ryan scrolled to the next photo and felt his heart stop. It was a handwritten guest list in Emma's careful script. His name was at the top as the groom, followed by Jake as best man, Emma's college friends as bridesmaids. At the bottom, in different ink like it had been added later, were the words "Baby due March 2018, with a small heart drawn beside it. "Emma," he breathed. "I was going to tell you about the pregnancy the night you proposed," she continued, her voice barely audible over Lily's monitors. "I had it all planned out. Dinner at the little Italian place where we had our first date. Then you'd ask me to marry you, and I'd tell you we were going to be a family." Ryan's hands were shaking as he looked at the photos, evidence of a future Emma had imagined for them, a life she'd planned down to the smallest detail while he'd been oblivious, focused only on building his empire. "But I never proposed," he said, the words tasting like ashes. "No. Instead, you told me you were too busy for whatever drama I wanted to create. You said I was needy and manipulative, and that you didn't have time for my insecurities." Emma wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "So I went home and packed everything I owned into 2 suitcases, and I left." "Why didn't you tell me about the baby later? After you'd had time to think?" Emma laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Because 3 weeks after I left, I saw the article in Forbes. Portland's rising business star sets sights on global expansion. There was a photo of you at some gala, your arm around a blonde woman in a red dress. The caption said you were celebrating your company's expansion with your close friend Victoria Ashford." Ryan's blood turned to ice. Victoria Ashford, the venture capitalist who'd helped fund his early expansion. They'd never been romantically involved, but the media had loved to speculate about their relationship. "Emma, that wasn't." "It doesn't matter what it was," Emma cut him off. "What mattered was that 3 weeks after I'd left pregnant and brokenhearted, you were already moving on. You didn't even look for me." "I was angry," Ryan said desperately. "I was hurt and proud and stupid, but I wasn't moving on. Victoria was a business partner, nothing more." "I didn't know that." Emma's voice was small now, vulnerable. "All I knew was that the man I loved, the father of my unborn child, was apparently doing just fine without me." Ryan felt something break inside his chest. While he'd been nursing his wounded pride and telling himself Emma would come crawling back, she'd been alone and pregnant, believing he'd replaced her within weeks. "So you decided to never tell me about Lily." "I decided to protect my baby from a father who'd already proven he didn't want us." The accusation hung between them, and Ryan realized that everything he'd believed about their breakup had been wrong. Emma hadn't left because she was dramatic or needy. She'd left because he'd destroyed her trust so completely that she'd felt she had no choice. "The pictures Lily mentioned," he said quietly. "Are they from the wedding we never had?" Emma nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "I kept everything. The dress is still in my closet. I told myself I'd throw it all away, but I couldn't. And sometimes, when I was really missing you, I'd look at them and remember what it felt like to believe in us." Ryan handed her phone back, his hands still shaking. "Emma, don't." She shook her head. "Please don't say you're sorry. I can't handle sorry right now." They sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of 7 years of misunderstandings and missed chances settling around them like fog. Ryan watched his daughter sleep and tried to process the magnitude of what he'd lost. Not just Emma and Lily, but the entire life Emma had planned for them. A life where they would have been married, where Lily would have grown up knowing her father, where none of this pain would have existed. "Does David know?" he asked finally. "About the dress, the pictures?" "No." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "I've never told anyone. But you're going to marry him in 3 weeks." "Yes." "Do you love him?" Emma was quiet for so long that Ryan thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her words destroyed him more completely than any anger could have. "I love him the way you love someone who saves your life. David found us when we had nothing, when I was working 3 jobs and still couldn't afford Lily's medications. He didn't just love me, he loved her. He became the father she needed, the partner I'd given up hoping for. But that's not the same as being in love with him." Emma's silence was answer enough. Ryan felt a desperate kind of hope rising in his chest, dangerous and intoxicating. "Emma, if you still have feelings for me." "It doesn't matter what I feel," she said sharply. "David has been there for us for 3 years. He's planning to adopt Lily after we're married. He loves her like she's his own daughter. But she's not his daughter. She's mine. Biology doesn't make you a father, Ryan. Being there does. Showing up does. David has earned the right to call himself her father." The words hit him like a slap, true and brutal. But before Ryan could respond, a soft voice interrupted them. "Mommy." Lily was awake, watching them with those 2 knowing eyes. "Why are you crying again?" Emma quickly wiped her face. "Just talking about grown-up things, sweetheart." "Are you sad because someone died?" "Yes, baby. Daddy David's sister died, and that makes us all very sad." Lily absorbed this with the solemn gravity children brought to discussions of death. Then she looked at Ryan. "Are you sad too?" "Yes," Ryan said honestly. "I'm sad about a lot of things." "Like what?" Ryan glanced at Emma, who gave him the slightest nod. Permission to tell at least part of the truth. "I'm sad because I missed a lot of your life," he said carefully. "And I'm sad that your daddy David lost someone he loved." "Did you know me when I was a baby?" The question hung in the air like a landmine. Emma looked panicked, but Ryan found he couldn't lie to those earnest eyes. "No, sweetheart. I didn't know you when you were a baby." "Why not?" "Because sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes mean they miss out on important things." Lily considered this with the seriousness of a judge. "Is that why Mommy keeps pictures of you in her bedroom?" Emma went white as a sheet. "Lily, I told you those were private." "But I don't understand," Lily continued, her child's logic cutting straight to the heart of the matter. "If Ryan made mistakes and missed my baby years, and Mommy has pictures of him and cries when she looks at them, and Ryan has eyes like mine." She paused, working through the puzzle. "Does that make Ryan my daddy before Daddy David?" The silence that followed was deafening. Emma looked trapped, desperate, like she wanted to run but had nowhere to go. Ryan felt his heart hammering against his ribs as he realized his 6-year-old daughter had just connected the dots that the adults had been dancing around all evening. "Lily," Emma started, but stopped when she realized she had no idea what to say. "It's okay, Mommy," Lily said gently. "I already knew." "What?" Emma's voice came out as a whisper. "I knew Ryan was my first daddy. He has my eyes and my stubborn chin. That's what you always call it when I won't eat my vegetables. And he gets the same worried wrinkle between his eyebrows when he's thinking hard." Lily looked at Ryan with a gravity that belonged on someone much older. "I just didn't know why you both looked so sad about it." Ryan felt the floor drop out from under him. His daughter, this incredible, perceptive, amazing little girl, had known who he was the moment she met him, had been watching him all evening, analyzing his expressions, caring about his feelings, while he'd been struggling with how to tell her the truth. "How long have you known?" Emma asked, her voice shaky. "Since I was little. I used to look at the pictures in your room and wonder why my real daddy looked so sad. And why you looked sad when you looked at him. Lily's expression grew troubled. Did I make you both sad? Is that why my real daddy went away? Oh, sweetheart, no. Emma was crying again, reaching for Lily's hand. You didn't make anyone sad. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Then why did Ryan go away? The question was directed at him, and Ryan realized that his answer would shape how his daughter saw herself, saw him, saw the whole world. He could lie, could make it simple, could paint himself as the villain to protect her from the complicated truth. Instead, he chose honesty. Because I was scared, he said quietly. I was young and scared, and I made the worst mistake of my life. I hurt your mommy's feelings so badly that she didn't think I wanted to know about you. But you did want to know about me? More than anything in the world. I just didn't know you existed until today. Lily absorbed this, then looked between them with the kind of clarity that only children possessed. So you both made mistakes. Mommy's mistake was not telling you about me, and your mistake was making Mommy think you didn't want us. The simplicity of it was devastating. 7 years of pain and regret and missed chances, boiled down to its essence by a 6-year-old who just wanted to understand why the adults in her life looked so sad. That's right, Ryan said. And now you're both sad because you can't fix the mistakes. Ryan looked at Emma, saw his own heartbreak reflected in her eyes. Something like that. But you can fix them, Lily said matter-of-factly. Daddy David says that's what sorry is for. You say sorry, and then you try to do better. It's more complicated than that, sweetheart, Emma said gently. Why? Because Daddy David and I are a family now. The words hit Ryan like a physical blow. His daughter understood exactly what was at stake. She knew that Ryan couldn't simply step into her life without disrupting the family she'd built with David. Yes, Emma said quietly. Lily was quiet for a long moment, thinking with the intensity that Ryan was beginning to recognize as purely hers. Then she looked at him with those eyes that were so much like his own. Ryan, do you want to be my daddy too? The question hung in the air like a prayer, like a wish, like the most important thing anyone had ever asked him. Ryan looked at this incredible little girl who'd somehow inherited the best parts of both him and Emma, who was smart enough to see through adult deceptions and kind enough to worry about everyone's feelings. More than anything, he said honestly, then maybe we can figure it out. Daddy David says families come in all different shapes. Maybe ours just has to be a different shape than other people's. Before Ryan or Emma could respond to their daughter's simple wisdom, Ryan's phone rang. David's number again. Ryan answered, dreading what he might hear. Ryan? Thank God you answered. David's voice was rough, exhausted. I need a favor. A big one. Anything. The funeral is the day after tomorrow. Sarah's will named me as Lily's guardian if anything happened to Emma, but there are some legal complications because we're not married yet. I need you to do something for me. Ryan's blood ran cold. What kind of legal complications? If something happens to me before the wedding, if I can't adopt Lily legally. David's voice broke. Ryan, you're her biological father. You have rights that I don't. If anything happens to me, I need to know that Lily will be taken care of. The irony was devastating. David was asking Ryan to promise to take care of the daughter he'd never known existed, to step into the role of father if the man who'd been raising her couldn't continue. David, nothing's going to happen to you. Promise me, Ryan. Promise me that if something happens, you'll take care of them. Both of them. Ryan looked at Emma, who was watching him with wide, frightened eyes. Then he looked at Lily, who was listening to every word with the intensity of a child who understood more than anyone gave her credit for. I promise, Ryan said. Thank you. David's relief was audible. I'll be back tomorrow afternoon. Kiss them both for me. After Ryan hung up, the hospital room fell silent except for the steady beeping of monitors. The conversation with David had shifted something fundamental. Suddenly, Ryan wasn't just a man who'd discovered he had a daughter. He was a man who'd been entrusted with protecting the family that another man had built with the woman he'd never stopped loving. What did Daddy David ask you to promise? Lily asked quietly. Ryan looked at Emma, who nodded almost imperceptibly. He asked me to promise that I'd take care of you and your mommy if anything ever happened to him. And you said yes? I said yes. Lily smiled, the first truly happy expression Ryan had seen from her all evening. Good. Because I think you'd be good at taking care of us. You already saved me when I couldn't breathe. And in that moment, Ryan realized that his daughter had just handed him something he'd never dared to hope for. Not just forgiveness for the 6 years he'd missed, but a place in the family she'd built without him. The question was whether Emma was ready to let him claim it. At 3 in the morning, Ryan's phone shattered the fragile peace of the hospital room with its insistent buzzing. Emma jerked awake in her chair while Lily stirred but didn't wake. The caller ID showed a number Ryan didn't recognize. Ryan Matthews. Mr. Matthews, this is Dr. Patricia Valdez at Portland General. You're listed as an emergency contact for Dr. David Chun. Ryan's blood turned to ice. What's wrong? Dr. Chun collapsed in our parking garage an hour ago. He's been admitted with what appears to be a severe anxiety attack, but we're running tests to rule out cardiac involvement. He's been asking for you. Emma was watching him now, reading his expression, and Ryan saw the exact moment she understood that something was terribly wrong. Is he going to be okay? Ryan asked. He's stable, but he's in no condition to make decisions right now. Mr. Matthews, there's something else. Dr. Chun was carrying some legal documents when he collapsed. Papers regarding guardianship and adoption proceedings. Our social worker needs to speak with you immediately. Ryan closed his eyes, feeling the walls closing in around them. I'll be right there. What happened? Emma whispered as he hung up. David collapsed. They think it's an anxiety attack, but... Ryan ran a hand through his hair. Emma, there are legal complications. Something about guardianship papers. Emma's face went white. Oh God, the adoption papers. David was supposed to file them this week before the wedding, but with his sister's death. What adoption papers? David's been trying to adopt Lily for 2 years. We thought it would be simpler after we were married, but his lawyer advised us to start the process early. Emma's voice was shaking. Ryan, if something happens to David before the adoption is finalized, if we don't get married. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Ryan understood with crystal clarity what she was saying. Without the legal protection of marriage and adoption, David had no parental rights to Lily. If something happened to Emma, if David couldn't complete the adoption, Ryan, as the biological father, would legally be Lily's only parent. I have to go talk to them, Ryan said. Will you be okay here with Lily? Go. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Just, Ryan, please don't do anything that will hurt her. Whatever's happening with the legal stuff, please remember that Lily loves David. He's the only father she's ever known. The words hit him like a physical blow, but Ryan nodded. As he stood to leave, Lily's voice stopped him. Ryan, she was awake, watching him with those 2 perceptive eyes. Is Daddy David okay? Ryan crouched beside her bed, choosing his words carefully. He's very sad about his sister, and sometimes when people are very sad, their bodies get sick too. The doctors are taking care of him. Are you going to help him? The simple question cut straight to the heart of everything. Was he going to help the man who'd taken his place, who'd raised his daughter, who Emma was supposed to marry in 3 weeks? Yes, Ryan said. I'm going to help him. Lily smiled, and Ryan realized his daughter had just given him something precious. Her trust that he would do the right thing, even when it wasn't the easy thing. The trip to David's floor felt like walking to his own execution. Dr. Valdez met him in the hallway. A woman in her 50s with kind eyes and the bearing of someone who delivered difficult news professionally. Mr. Matthews? Thank you for coming. Dr. Chun is sedated right now, but he was very agitated about some legal documents. Our social worker, Janet Morrison, needs to speak with you. Janet Morrison turned out to be a woman in her 40s with graying hair and the tired look of someone who'd seen too many family crises. She led Ryan to a small conference room where legal documents were spread across the table like evidence of a crime. Mr. Matthews, I understand this is a complicated situation, Janet began. Dr. Chun was in the process of filing adoption papers for Lily Chun, but his sister's death has created some complications. What kind of complications? Dr. Chun is now the sole beneficiary of his sister's estate, which includes significant assets and debts. Until those are settled, the court has placed a hold on any new legal proceedings involving Dr. Chun, including the adoption. Ryan felt the room spin slightly. How long? Could be months. Maybe longer if there are disputes. Janet leaned forward, her expression sympathetic but professional. Mr. Matthews, we've done some research since Dr. Chun mentioned your name. You're listed as the biological father on Lily's birth certificate. Yes, but you've had no legal contact with the child until today. I didn't know she existed until today. Janet's eyebrows rose slightly. That's unusual. Mr. Matthews, under current circumstances, you have more legal standing regarding Lily than Dr. Chun does. If something were to happen to Emma Chun before Dr. Chun can complete the adoption, Lily would legally be my responsibility, Ryan finished. Yes. And given Dr. Chen's current condition, given the legal complications with his sister's estate, the court might decide that placing Lily with her biological father would be in her best interests. The words hit Ryan like a sledgehammer. Even if Emma objects, a mother's wishes carry significant weight, but they're not the only consideration. The court's primary concern is the child's welfare. Janet paused. Mr. Matthews, I have to ask, do you want parental rights to Lily? The question hung in the air like a loaded gun. 6 hours ago, Ryan hadn't known he had a daughter. Now he was being asked whether he wanted to claim legal custody of her, potentially taking her away from the only father she'd ever known. This is hypothetical, right? Ryan asked. Emma's healthy, David's going to recover. Mr. Matthews, I need an answer for our records. If circumstances required it, would you be willing to assume full parental responsibility for Lily Chun? Ryan thought about his daughter's smile, her perceptive questions, the way she'd worried about his feelings from the moment they met. He thought about the life he'd missed, the bedtime stories he'd never read, the scraped knees he'd never kissed better. Yes, he said quietly. I would. Janet made a note on her paperwork. And what about Emma Chun? Would you be willing to assume responsibility for her as well, given her relationship to the child? What do you mean? Emergency guardianship sometimes extends to include the primary caregiver when it's in the child's best interests. If Dr. Chun can't fulfill his role as Emma's support system, Ryan realized what she was asking. In a worst-case scenario, if David couldn't recover, if the legal complications dragged on, Ryan could potentially be granted not just custody of Lily, but legal responsibility for Emma as well. He would become the head of the family that David had built, the protector of the woman he'd never stopped loving and the daughter he'd never known existed. I would take care of both of them, Ryan said. Good. We'll file the paperwork accordingly. Janet began gathering the documents. Mr. Matthews, there's one more thing. Dr. Chun asked us to give you this. She handed him a sealed envelope with his name written in David's careful script. Ryan opened it with trembling hands. Ryan, asterisk if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. I need you to know that everything I've done for the past 3 years has been about loving Emma and Lily. Not because I wanted to replace you, but because they needed someone to love them. Asterisk. Asterisk I've known about you since Emma, and I got serious. She told me about the man who broke her heart, about the father Lily never knew. I've seen the pictures she keeps, seen the way she looks when she thinks no one is watching. Asterisk. Asterisk Emma loves you. She's always loved you. She's marrying me because I'm safe, because I showed up when you didn't. But safety isn't the same as love, and we both know it. Asterisk. Asterisk if something happens to me, please don't let them be alone again. Emma will try to convince herself she doesn't need anyone, but she does. And Lily. Lily deserves to know her real father. Asterisk. Asterisk I've attached my lawyer's contact information. He has instructions to help you navigate the legal aspects of this situation. The adoption papers, the guardianship arrangements, he can explain everything. Asterisk. Asterisk take care of them, Ryan. Love them the way I have. Love them the way I won't be able to. Asterisk. David. Asterisk P.S. Lily knows more than we think. She's been asking questions about her real daddy for months. Emma thinks she's protecting her, but children aren't stupid. Tell her the truth. She can handle it. Asterisk. Ryan's hands were shaking as he finished reading. David had known that Emma still loved him, had known that he was going to lose the family he built, and he'd still tried to protect them all. Mr. Matthews? Janet's voice seemed to come from very far away. Are you all right? Can I see him? David. He's sedated, but you can sit with him for a few minutes. David's hospital room was dimmer than Lily's, filled with the quiet beeping of monitors and the soft hiss of oxygen. David looked smaller in the hospital bed, younger than his 32 years, vulnerable in a way that made Ryan's chest ache with unexpected sympathy. As Ryan sat in the chair beside the bed, David's eyes fluttered open. Ryan. His voice was hoarse, confused. You came. You asked me to. My sister. I'm sorry, David. I'm so sorry. David nodded, tears sliding down his cheeks. She was all the family I had left. Until Emma and Lily. The words hung between them, carrying the weight of everything David was afraid of losing. David, the legal complications. I know. David's voice was barely a whisper. My lawyer explained everything before I collapsed. Ryan, if the adoption doesn't go through. I read your letter. Then you know what I'm asking you to do. Ryan looked at this man who'd loved his daughter, who'd taken care of his family, who was now asking him to step into the role he'd vacated 7 years ago. I don't know if I can do this, Ryan admitted. I don't know how to be a father. Neither did I, David said with a weak smile. But Lily taught me. She'll teach you too. What about Emma? She loves you. She loves the idea of safety. She loves the man who won't hurt her the way you did. David's eyes met Ryan's. But she's never looked at me the way she used to look at you in those pictures. David, I'm not giving up, David said quickly. I'm going to fight for them. But if I can't, promise me you won't let your pride destroy them again. Before Ryan could respond, his phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Asterisk, Lily's asking for you. Please come back. Asterisk. I have to go, Ryan said. Take care of them tonight, David said, his eyes already closing from the sedatives. Just in case. Ryan walked back to Lily's room feeling like he was carrying the weight of 3 lives on his shoulders. The hallways seemed longer, the elevator slower, the distance between him and his family insurmountable. When he opened the door to Lily's room, he found Emma pacing by the window while Lily sat up in bed, her eyes bright with worry. Ryan, Lily called out. Mommy said Daddy David is sick too. Is he going to be okay? Ryan looked at Emma, saw the fear and exhaustion written in every line of her face, and realized they were all balanced on the edge of a precipice. One wrong move, one more crisis, and everything they'd built, everything David had built, would come crashing down. He's going to try to be okay, Ryan said carefully. But he's very sad right now, and sometimes sadness makes people sick. Are you going to help take care of us while he's sad? Lily asked. The question was innocent, but Ryan could see Emma stiffen behind her. This was it. The moment when he had to choose between what he wanted and what was right, between claiming his daughter and protecting the family she'd already built. Would you like me to? He asked. Yes, Lily said without hesitation. I think Mommy needs someone to take care of her too. She gets scared when people she loves are in the hospital. Ryan looked at Emma, saw the tears she was fighting back, the way she was holding herself together through sheer force of will. And he realized that David had been right. Emma did need someone to take care of her. The question was whether she would let him be that someone, or if his presence would only make everything worse. Emma, Ryan said quietly. What do you need? The question broke something in her. She collapsed into the chair beside Lily's bed, finally letting the tears fall. I need David to be okay, she whispered. I need this all to make sense. I need my daughter to stop having to worry about the adults in her life. Then let me help, Ryan said. Not as Lily's biological father, not as the man you used to love. Just as someone who cares about both of you. Emma looked up at him through her tears, and for a moment, Ryan saw something that looked like hope. But before she could respond, the door opened and Dr. Valdez appeared, her expression grim. Miss Chen, we need to talk. Dr. Valdez's expression made Ryan's stomach drop. She glanced at Lily, then back at Emma, the kind of look medical professionals gave when they needed to deliver news that would change everything. Ms. Chen, perhaps we could speak privately? Whatever you need to tell me, you can say in front of Ryan, Emma said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. He's family. The word family hit Ryan like lightning, but he forced himself to focus on Dr. Valdez's increasingly grim expression. Ms. Chen, Dr. Chen's condition has deteriorated. What we initially thought was an anxiety attack appears to be something more serious. We've discovered some irregularities in his heart rhythm, likely brought on by extreme stress and exhaustion. We need to run more extensive tests. Emma's face went white. What kind of irregularities? His heart is beating erratically. It could be temporary, stress-induced, but... Dr. Valdez paused. We need to consider the possibility of a more serious cardiac event. Is he going to die? Lily's voice was small, scared, cutting through the adult conversation with the directness only children possessed. Dr. Valdez softened her expression as she looked at Lily. We're going to do everything we can to help him feel better, sweetheart. But he's going to need to stay in the hospital for a while. How long? Emma asked. At least a week for observation and treatment. Possibly longer depending on what we find. Dr. Valdez hesitated. Ms. Chen, there's something else. Dr. Chen has been asking for his attorney. He wants to make some changes to his legal documents. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Ryan understood immediately what David was doing. He was preparing for the possibility that he might not recover, that he might not be able to marry Emma, might not be able to adopt Lily. What kind of changes? Emma's voice was barely a whisper. I can't discuss the specifics, but he's very concerned about ensuring that Lily's future is secure. Dr. Valdez looked at Ryan. Mr. Matthews, he specifically requested that you be present when he meets with his attorney tomorrow morning. Ryan felt the weight of David's letter in his pocket, the burden of the promise he'd made. David was asking him to step up, to claim the family that another man had built, to become the father and partner he'd never been ready to be 7 years ago. I'll be there, Ryan said. After Dr. Valdez left, the hospital room fell into a silence so heavy it was hard to breathe. Emma stared at the floor, her hands clenched in her lap, while Lily watched them both with eyes that were far too knowing for a 6-year-old. Mommy, Lily said quietly, are you scared? A little, sweetheart. Are you scared that Daddy David might not get better? Emma's breath caught. Yes. And are you scared about what happens to us if he doesn't? The question hit like a knife to the chest. Emma looked up at Ryan, her eyes full of terror and something that might have been hope. Lily, that's not something you need to worry about, Emma said, but her voice lacked conviction. But I do worry about it, Lily said matter-of-factly. Because if Daddy David can't marry you, and if something happens to you, then Ryan would have to take care of me because he's my real daddy. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Emma's face went from pale to green, and Ryan realized that Lily had just verbalized the fear that was eating Emma alive, the possibility that she might lose control of her daughter's future. Sweetheart, Emma started, but Lily wasn't finished. And maybe that wouldn't be so bad, Lily continued, looking at Ryan with those eyes that were so much like his own. Because Ryan seems nice, and he has sad eyes like the man in your pictures, which means he's probably good at understanding when people have big feelings. Ryan's heart cracked open. His daughter was trying to comfort her mother about the possibility of him becoming her guardian. She was 6 years old and already more emotionally mature than he'd been at 25. Lily, Ryan said carefully, what would you want to happen? If you could choose? Lily considered this with the seriousness she brought to all important questions. I want Daddy David to get better so Mommy doesn't have to be scared anymore. But if he can't get better, I want you to take care of us so Mommy doesn't have to be alone. And what about what you want? What would make you happy? I want everyone to stop being sad, Lily said simply. I want Mommy to stop looking at those pictures and crying. I want Daddy David to not be sick. And I want you to not look like you're going to throw up every time someone says I'm your daughter. The observation hit Ryan like a physical blow. Do I look like that? A little. Like you want something really bad but you're scared you're not allowed to have it. Out of the mouths of babes. Ryan looked at Emma, who was staring at their daughter with amazement and terror in equal measure. Lily, Emma said carefully, you know that just because Ryan is your biological father doesn't mean he has to take care of us, right? He has his own life. Do you? Lily interrupted, looking at Ryan. Have your own life that's more important than us? The question was a mirror of the one Emma had tried to ask him 7 years ago. The conversation he'd been too proud and too focused on his own ambitions to have. No, Ryan said, and he meant it more than anything he'd ever said in his life. There's nothing more important than you and your mom. Then why do you look so sad about it? Ryan felt tears burning behind his eyes. Because I'm scared I don't know how to be a good father. I'm scared I'll make the same mistakes I made before. What kind of mistakes? I hurt your mom's feelings really badly. I made her think I didn't care about her, when really I cared about her more than anything. Lily absorbed this, then looked at Emma. Is that true, Mommy? Did Ryan hurt your feelings? Emma nodded, unable to speak. But he says he cared about you more than anything. So maybe he just didn't know how to show it right. The simplicity of it was devastating. A 6-year-old had just articulated what it had taken Ryan years to understand about himself. Maybe, Emma whispered. And if he knows how to show it better now, maybe he wouldn't make the same mistakes? Before Emma could answer, Ryan's phone rang. David's attorney, according to the caller ID. Mr. Matthews? This is James Harrison, Dr. Chen's attorney. I understand you're at the hospital with Ms. Chun and Lily. Yes. Sir, I need you to understand the gravity of the situation. Dr. Chen has asked me to prepare some emergency documents. If his condition worsens, if he's unable to complete the adoption proceedings. I understand. Do you, sir? Because what Dr. Chun is proposing is highly unusual. He wants to voluntarily relinquish any claim to Lily and recommend that you be granted full custody. He's also prepared documents that would make you Emma's legal guardian if she consents. Ryan's legs nearly gave out. What? Dr. Chin believes this is the best way to ensure their security. But Mr. Matthews, once these documents are signed, there's no going back. You would be legally responsible for both of them, regardless of whether Dr. Chin recovers. Why would he do that? Because he loves them more than he loves himself. And because he knows that Emma has never stopped loving you. The words hit Ryan like a sledgehammer. He looked at Emma, who had gone completely white, and realized she'd heard enough of the conversation to understand what was being offered. Mr. Matthews, I need an answer. Are you prepared to accept full legal and financial responsibility for Emma and Lily Chun, effective immediately? Ryan looked at his daughter, who was watching him with complete trust, as if she knew he would make the right choice. Then he looked at Emma, who was crying silently, her whole world balanced on the edge of his decision. This was it, the impossible choice David had written about in his letter. Ryan could claim the family he'd always wanted, but only by accepting a responsibility that would change his entire life. And he would be taking them from a man who'd earned their love through years of presence and devotion. I need to talk to Emma first, Ryan said. You have until morning, Mr. Matthews. Dr. Chin wants to sign the papers before his surgery. Surgery? They've scheduled him for a cardiac procedure. There are risks involved. Ryan hung up feeling like the world had shifted off its axis. Emma was staring at him with an expression he couldn't read, while Lily waited patiently for the adults to explain what was happening. Emma, Ryan said quietly, we need to talk about this. I know. Her voice was barely audible. But not here. Not in front of Lily. I'm not leaving her alone. Then we talk here, and we don't lie to her anymore. Ryan looked at Lily, who was watching them with complete attention. Lily, would it be okay if your mom and I talked about some very important grown-up things? Things that affect all of us. Are you going to decide what happens to me? The directness of the question took his breath away. We're going to try to figure out what's best for everyone. Okay, but can I say something first? Of course, sweetheart. Lily looked between them with the gravity of a judge about to render a verdict. I think you should choose what makes you happy, not what makes you scared. Because scared choices always make people sad later. And with that piece of wisdom from a 6-year-old, Ryan realized he was about to make the most important decision of his life. A choice that would either give him everything he'd ever wanted or destroy any chance he had of redemption. The question was whether Emma was ready to stop choosing safety and start choosing love. At 6 in the morning, Emma made a decision that would change everything. She'd been awake all night, watching Lily sleep, watching Ryan doze fitfully in the chair by the window, thinking about scared choices and happy choices and the difference between love and safety. When the sun finally crept through the hospital blinds, she knew what she had to do. Ryan, she whispered. He was awake instantly, alert in the way of someone who'd spent the night balancing on the edge of crisis. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's wrong. I don't know. Emma looked at Lily, still sleeping peacefully, then back at Ryan. I need to tell you something before David's lawyer gets here. Ryan sat up straighter, and Emma could see the tension in every line of his body. I lied, she said quietly. When I said I loved David the way you love someone who saves your life. That's not the whole truth. Ryan's expression didn't change, but she saw his hands clench slightly. Emma, let me finish. Please. She took a shaky breath. I do love David. He's kind and steady, and he's been an amazing father to Lily. He deserves someone who can love him completely, without reservation. But that's not me. The words came out in a rush, like she was afraid she'd lose her nerve. I've been living half a life for 3 years, trying to convince myself that safe was enough. That gratitude was the same as love. That I could build a marriage on stability instead of passion. Ryan's eyes were locked on hers now, and she could see hope warring with disbelief in his expression. The truth is, I never stopped loving you, Emma continued. Even when I hated you, even when I was planning a life with David, even when I was standing in a wedding dress shop last month, trying to convince myself I was making the right choice. Her voice broke. I kept your pictures because throwing them away felt like giving up on the only real love I've ever known. Ryan was off his chair and kneeling beside her before she'd finished speaking. Emma, I'm not done. She held up a hand, tears streaming down her face. I need you to understand what I'm saying. If I choose you, if I let you be Lily's father, if I accept David's offer, I'm not doing it because I'm desperate or because I need someone to take care of us. I'm doing it because I want to stop being afraid. I want to stop choosing safety over love. And if I hurt you again? Emma looked at him for a long moment, seeing not the ambitious 25-year-old who'd broken her heart, but the man who'd spent the night in a hospital chair making sure his daughter was safe, who'd promised to take care of people he barely knew, who'd looked at Lily and seen everything he'd been missing. Then you hurt me, she said simply. But at least I'll know I chose love instead of settling for less. Ryan's hands were shaking as he reached for hers. Emma, I can't promise I won't make mistakes. I can't promise I'll always know the right thing to say or do. But I can promise that losing you and Lily was the worst thing that ever happened to me, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure it never happens again. Even if it means giving up some of your business empire? Even if it means putting family first when work is calling? Especially then. Ryan's voice was fierce, certain. Emma, I built an empire thinking it would make me happy, but all it did was fill the hole where you and Lily should have been. I don't want to be a man who chooses work over family. I want to be the man Lily thinks I am when she looks at me with those trusting eyes. Before Emma could respond, a small voice interrupted them. Are you two going to kiss now? They turned to find Lily awake, watching them with bright, curious eyes and a small smile that looked remarkably like Ryan's. How long have you been awake? Emma asked, her cheeks burning. Since you said the part about choosing love over being scared, Lily said matter-of-factly. I like that part. It sounds like something a princess would say in a movie, except better because it's real. Ryan laughed, the first genuine laugh Emma had heard from him since he was 25. What do you think about all this, sweetheart? About your mom and me? Lily considered the question with her usual seriousness. I think Mommy looks happier when she looks at you than when she looks at Daddy David. And I think you look less sad when you look at us. And I think maybe we could all be happy together. What about David? Emma asked gently. You love him. I do love him, Lily said. But maybe I can love him like an uncle instead of a daddy? Because Ryan is my real daddy, and now that I know him, I want to keep him. The simple declaration hit Ryan like lightning. His daughter wanted to keep him. After everything he'd missed, all the ways he'd failed before he'd even known she existed, she wanted him to stay. I want to keep you too, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Good. Because I have lots of questions about why I'm so stubborn, and Mommy says that's your fault. Before Ryan could respond to that, the door opened and David walked in. Emma's heart stopped. David looked terrible, pale, exhausted, wearing a hospital gown under a robe, but he was awake and walking and very much alive. David. Emma was on her feet instantly. You shouldn't be out of bed. The doctors said. The doctors cleared me for this conversation, David said quietly. Though they want me back in an hour for pre-surgery prep. Daddy David. Lily called out. You look better. I feel a little better, sweetheart. David's smile was gentle but sad as he looked at the three of them. Ryan still kneeling beside Emma's chair, their hands intertwined, the obvious intimacy of the moment. I can see you've all been talking. David, Emma started, but he held up a hand. Emma, before you say anything, I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you a long time ago. David moved slowly to the chair by Lily's bed, wincing slightly. Lily, sweetheart, I need to have a grown-up conversation with your mom and Ryan. Is that okay? Are you going to talk about feelings? Yes. Big feelings. Very big feelings. Lily nodded solemnly. Okay. But remember what you taught me. Feelings get smaller when you share them. David's smile was genuine this time. You're absolutely right. He turned to Emma and Ryan, and his expression grew serious. Emma, I heard what you said. About loving Ryan, about choosing love over safety. Emma's face went white. David, how much did you hear? Enough to know that I've been holding on to something that was never really mine. David's voice was calm, but Emma could see the pain in his eyes. Emma, I've known for months that you were settling for me. I told myself that was enough, that I could love you enough for both of us. David, let me finish. Please. He looked at Ryan. And you, I don't hate you, though I probably should. I understand why Emma fell in love with you. I understand why she never really fell out of love with you. Ryan's jaw tightened. I never meant for any of this to happen. I know, but it did happen, and now we all have to deal with it. David turned back to Emma. The truth is, I wasn't having an anxiety attack last night. Well, not entirely. What do you mean? David was quiet for a moment, then reached into his robe pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Emma recognized it immediately, her engagement ring. I was sitting in the parking garage after talking to my lawyer, holding this, and I realized I was about to make the biggest mistake of my life. David, what are you saying? I was about to marry a woman who's in love with someone else, and adopt a child who deserves to know her real father. David opened the box, looking at the ring. I was going to build a family on a foundation of settling for less, and that's not fair to any of us. Emma felt the world tilt. Are you breaking up with me? I'm setting you free, David said gently. All of you. But the adoption papers, the legal documents. I'm withdrawing the adoption petition. I'm recommending that Ryan be granted full parental rights. David looked at Lily, his expression infinitely tender. Sweetheart, that means Ryan will legally be your daddy, and I'll be your friend who loves you very much. Will you still come to my birthday party? Lily asked, and the innocence of the question broke everyone's heart. If you want me to, I'll be there, David promised. What about your sister's estate? Ryan asked. The legal complications? David's expression shifted to something that looked almost like relief. That's the other thing I need to tell you. My lawyer called an hour ago. Sarah left everything to a children's hospital in Seattle. She knew I didn't need her money, and she wanted to help kids like she couldn't help herself. What does that mean? It means there are no legal complications. It means I'm free to withdraw the adoption petition without any court interference. David stood up slowly, extending the ring box to Emma. It means you're free to choose the life you really want. Emma stared at the ring box like it might explode. David, I can't take your ring back. You bought that for me. I bought it hoping it would make you love me the way you love him, David said quietly. But you can't purchase that kind of love, Emma. It's either there or it isn't. And you're okay with this? Ryan asked, and Emma could hear the disbelief in his voice. You're okay with walking away from the woman you love and the child you've raised? I'm not walking away, David corrected. I'm stepping back so you can step up. There's a difference. David sat back down, looking directly at Ryan. Ryan, I need you to understand something. What I'm doing isn't noble or selfless. It's necessary. Emma deserves to be with someone she can love completely, and Lily deserves to know her biological father. But more than that, I deserve to be with someone who chooses me first, not as a safe backup plan. The words hung in the air with the weight of absolute truth. Emma felt something break open in her chest, not her heart, but the careful walls she'd built around it. David, she whispered, I'm so sorry. I never meant to. I know. David's smile was sad but genuine. Emma, you gave me 3 of the best years of my life. You and Lily taught me what it felt like to be part of a family. I'm grateful for that, even if I can't keep it. He turned to Lily. And you, little one, taught me that being a father isn't about biology. It's about showing up every day and choosing to love someone more than yourself. That's a lesson I'll carry forever. Will you still be sad? Lily asked. For a while, David admitted. But not forever. And I'll be happy knowing that you and your mom get to be with the person you're supposed to be with. Before anyone could respond, there was a knock on the door. James Harrison, David's lawyer, entered with a briefcase and the expression of a man who'd been preparing for this conversation all night. Good morning, everyone. Dr. Chen, are you sure you want to proceed with this? I'm sure, David said firmly. And Mr. Matthews, you understand that accepting these documents makes you legally and financially responsible for both Lily and Emma. Should she consent? Ryan looked at Emma, then at Lily, then back at the lawyer. I understand. Emma. James turned to her. Do you consent to this arrangement? This was it. The moment she'd been avoiding for 7 years. The choice between the safe, predictable life she'd built with David and the uncertain, passionate, potentially devastating future she could have with Ryan. She looked at her daughter, who was watching her with complete trust, as if she knew her mother would make the right choice. Then she looked at David, who was offering her the greatest gift anyone had ever given her. Freedom to choose love over fear. Finally, she looked at Ryan, who was waiting for her answer with his heart in his eyes. Yes, she said. I consent. The next hour passed in a blur of legal documents, signatures, and the strange bureaucracy of changing the fundamental structure of a family. But through it all, one moment stood out with crystal clarity. When David hugged Lily goodbye before his surgery, she whispered something in his ear that made him smile. The first real smile Emma had seen from him in months. What did you say to him? Emma asked after David left. I told him thank you for being my practice daddy, so I'd know how to be a good daughter when my real daddy came back. Ryan's breath caught, and Emma saw tears in his eyes. And what did he say? He said I was the best teacher he ever had, and that Ryan was very lucky to have me. As they watched David walk down the hospital corridor toward his surgery, Emma realized that sometimes the greatest act of love was knowing when to let go. David was giving them the chance to be the family they were meant to be, even though it cost him everything he thought he wanted. "Are you sure about this?" Ryan asked quietly, his arm around Emma's shoulders as Lily dozed in her hospital bed. "I'm sure I love you," Emma said. "I'm sure I want to try again. I'm sure I want Lily to know her father." "And the rest of it?" Emma looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not the man who'd broken her heart 7 years ago, but the man who'd spent the night in a hospital chair, who'd promised to take care of people he barely knew, who'd looked at his daughter and seen everything worth fighting for. "The rest of it we'll figure out together," she said. And for the first time in 7 years, Emma chose love over fear, passion over safety, the uncertain promise of happiness over the guarantee of settling for less. The transformation was complete, not just for Ryan, who'd learned that success meant nothing without someone to share it with, or for Emma, who'd learned that love required courage, not just comfort. But for all of them, learning that sometimes the most devastating endings were actually the most beautiful beginnings. 3 months later, Ryan Matthews stood in the kitchen of the house he'd bought in Portland's Hawthorne district, watching his daughter help Emma make pancakes while rain drummed softly against the windows. It was a Saturday morning ritual they'd established. No phones, no work emails, just the three of them moving around each other with the easy familiarity of a family that had learned to choose presence over productivity. "Daddy, you're burning the bacon," Lily announced without looking up from the strawberries she was arranging in a smiley face pattern. "Daddy." The word still hit him like lightning every time she said it, 3 months after the legal papers had made it official. Ryan quickly flipped the bacon, grateful for his daughter's eagle-eyed supervision. "Thank you, sweetheart. What would I do without you?" "Probably eat a lot of burnt food," Lily said seriously, and Emma laughed, the sound Ryan had missed for 7 years and now got to hear every day. They'd moved slowly, carefully, like people learning to trust the ground beneath their feet. Ryan had kept his apartment for the first month while they figured out how to be a family, while Lily adjusted to having a father who was more than just pictures in a shoebox. The house had been Emma's idea, a fresh start for all of them, someplace that belonged to their new beginning rather than their complicated past. "How's David doing?" Emma asked, reading the text that had just come through on Ryan's phone. "Good. Really good, actually." Ryan smiled, still amazed by how that statement could be true. "He's seeing someone, a nurse from the cardiac unit. Apparently, she's the one who convinced him to take that teaching position at OHSU. David's recovery had been remarkable, not just physically but emotionally. The surgery had been successful, and removing himself from the complicated triangle of their relationship had freed him to rediscover who he was outside of being Emma's safe choice. He'd started teaching pediatric pulmonology to medical students, had begun dating again, and had somehow managed to remain genuinely involved in Lily's life. "Is he still coming to my school play next week?" Lily asked. "Wouldn't miss it," Ryan confirmed. "Though he says you have to promise not to get stage fright like last time." Lily had initially struggled with having 2 father figures, worried that loving Ryan meant she had to stop loving David, or that David would disappear the way people sometimes did in her young experience. It had taken several family conversations, some involving all 4 adults, to help her understand that love wasn't finite, that families could be bigger and more complicated than the traditional model. "I won't get stage fright," Lily declared. "I'm going to be the best sunflower in the whole play." "You're going to be the best sunflower in the world," Emma said, kissing the top of her head. Ryan watched this exchange with the wonder of someone who still couldn't quite believe this was his life. He'd sold his company 6 weeks ago, not because Emma or Lily had asked him to, but because he'd realized that building wealth was meaningless if you had no one to build a life with. The buyer had been impressed enough with his systems and team to offer him a consulting position that let him work from home 3 days a week, travel only when absolutely necessary, and never miss another bedtime story or school play. "Ryan," Emma said quietly while Lily was distracted by arranging more fruit, "I got a call yesterday." Something in her tone made him look up. "What kind of call?" "From Rebecca. She wants to know if we're planning to get married." The question hung in the air like morning mist. They'd been living together for 2 months, had fallen into the rhythms of family life with surprising ease, but they'd carefully avoided discussing the future beyond next week's plans. "What did you tell her?" Emma's cheeks flushed slightly. "I told her that was between you and me." "And what's between you and me?" Before Emma could answer, Lily piped up. Are you talking about getting married? Because I think you should. Ryan and Emma stared at their daughter, who was still arranging strawberries but had clearly been listening to every word. Why do you think we should get married? Emma asked. Because you love each other, and because I want to be a flower girl, and because then Ryan would be my daddy on all the official papers, not just some of them. The logic was flawless and devastating. Ryan looked at Emma, saw the hope and terror warring in her expression, and realized they'd reached another one of those moments that would define the rest of their lives. Lily, Ryan said carefully, what if your mom and I aren't ready to get married yet? Would that be okay? Lily considered this with her usual seriousness. Are you not ready because you're scared, or because you don't want to? The question cut straight to the heart of everything. Ryan looked at Emma, who was watching him with the same intensity Lily brought to all her important observations. I'm not scared of marrying your mom, Ryan said slowly. I'm scared of messing it up again. But you're different now, Lily pointed out. You make pancakes on Saturday mornings, and you read me stories, and you don't look at your phone when we're talking. People who do those things don't mess up marriages. Out of the mouths of babes. Ryan felt his chest tighten with love for this incredible little girl who somehow understood relationships better than most adults. What do you think, Mommy? Lily asked. Do you want to marry Ryan? Emma was quiet for a long moment, her hands still on the pancake batter. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but certain. I think I want to marry the man who spent 3 hours researching asthma treatments the day after he met you. I think I want to marry the man who learned to braid hair because he wanted to help you get ready for school. I think I want to marry the man who chose us over a business empire. Ryan's heart stopped. Emma, I think I want to marry my best friend from college, who grew up to be the father I always hoped he could be. The words hung between them like a promise, like a prayer, like everything Ryan had dreamed of but never dared to ask for. Is that a yes? Lily asked impatiently. Emma laughed, tears streaming down her face. That's a yes. Ryan. Lily turned to him expectantly. What's your answer? Ryan looked at this woman who'd given him a second chance, at this daughter who'd taught him what love really meant, at this life they'd built from the ashes of old mistakes and new possibilities. My answer is that I want to marry the woman who kept pictures of me even when she hated me. I want to marry the mother who raised an incredible daughter all by herself and still managed to teach her that love makes families bigger, not smaller. His voice broke. I want to marry my best friend from college, who never stopped believing I could be better than I was. So that's a yes too? Lily asked. That's the biggest yes in the history of yes, Ryan said, and Lily clapped her hands in delight. Can we have the wedding in the garden where you first saw me? Lily asked. Because that's where our family really started? Ryan and Emma looked at each other, both remembering that moment at Jake and Rebecca's reception when a little girl with his eyes had pointed at a wedding cake and changed everything. I think that's perfect, Emma said. They were married 6 weeks later in Jake and Rebecca's garden, on a sunny Saturday afternoon with Lily as the flower girl and David as one of the witnesses. The ceremony was small, just family and close friends, but it felt like the most important event in the history of the world. Ryan's vows made everyone cry. Emma, 7 years ago I was too young and too scared to choose love over ambition. You gave me a second chance to choose correctly, and I promise I will choose you and Lily every day for the rest of my life. Emma's vows made him cry. Ryan, you taught me that real love isn't safe, it's brave. It's choosing to trust someone with your whole heart, even when you know they have the power to break it. Thank you for being worth the risk. But it was Lily's spontaneous addition that made everyone laugh through their tears. And I promise to keep reminding you both that big feelings get smaller when you share them, and that families are supposed to take care of each other, and that Saturday morning pancakes are very important for family happiness. As they danced to their first song as husband and wife, the same song that had been playing at Jake's reception when Ryan first saw Lily, Emma whispered something in his ear that made him hold her tighter. What did she say? Lily asked later, during the father-daughter dance. She said she was grateful for all the bad choices that led us to this good one. That's very wise, Lily said seriously. Mommy is smart about feelings. Yes, she is. And so are you. I get that from both of you, Lily said matter-of-factly. The smart part from Mommy and the stubborn part from you. Ryan laughed, spinning his daughter around the dance floor while Emma watched from the sidelines, her hand resting on her stomach where their second child was just beginning to grow, a secret they'd share with Lily tonight, after the wedding guests went home. 6 months later, Ryan stood in another hospital room, this time holding his newborn son while Lily and Emma slept peacefully nearby. David had stopped by earlier to meet the baby, bringing flowers and congratulations and genuine happiness for the family he'd helped create by letting go. "What are you thinking about?" Emma asked sleepily. "I'm thinking about how lucky we are," Ryan said honestly. "How easily we could have missed all of this. But we didn't miss it. We found our way back to each other. With a little help from a very wise 6-year-old. 7-year-old, Lily corrected without opening her eyes. "I had a birthday, remember?" Ryan smiled, adjusting his sleeping son in his arms. Thomas David Matthews, named for the man who'd taught them all that sometimes love meant stepping aside so others could step up. "I remember everything now," Ryan said quietly. "That's the difference between who I was and who I am. I remember what matters." Outside the hospital window, Portland was waking up on a Tuesday morning in spring. Cars moved through traffic, people hurried to work, the world continued its relentless pace. But inside this room, Ryan had found something more valuable than any empire he could build. A little girl who called him daddy. A woman who'd taught him that love was worth the risk. A son who would grow up knowing he was wanted from his very first breath. A family that had been broken and rebuilt, not in spite of their mistakes, but because of what they'd learned from them. He thought about the man he'd been 7 years ago, so focused on building something impressive that he'd missed building something meaningful. That man would barely recognize the life Ryan was living now, would probably think he'd settled for less. But Ryan knew better. He'd learned the difference between success and significance, between accumulating wealth and creating a legacy, between being impressive and being present. As Emma reached for his hand and Lily mumbled something about pancakes in her sleep, Ryan realized that sometimes the most devastating losses led to the most beautiful discoveries. Sometimes you had to lose everything you thought you wanted to find everything you actually needed. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, if you were willing to choose love over fear, if you had a daughter wise enough to remind you that big feelings get smaller when you share them, sometimes you got a second chance to build a life worth living. "I love you," Emma whispered. "I love you too," Ryan whispered back. And in the quiet of that hospital room, surrounded by his family, Ryan Matthews finally understood what it meant to be rich. What did this story teach you about the power of second chances and the courage it takes to choose love over fear? Sometimes our biggest mistakes lead us to our greatest gifts. We just have to be brave enough to accept them when they appear. Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories that will change how you see the world.